Hi everybody, welcome to this week's Fusion Friday video. Now this one I'm going to show you how to work in a little bit of 3D space inside of Fusion. So we're not going to do much of the navigating. What I wanted to do was show you how to create kind of a basic rocky material, and it takes just a very few nodes and it's really quick and simple. But what is also quite interesting is how fast the feedback is inside of Fusion. So I'm going to turn on high quality for our viewer controls there, and I'm going to hit control space, and let's just type in let's go for a Fong material. So we've got a Fong 3D there. Let's add that to our scene. So we have this which we can throw straight into one of our viewers, and as soon as I do it, you'll see that we get a lit visual representation. And let's just zoom in so you can see what I'm doing here. So to pan around is the middle mouse button, and to zoom is left and middle and drag together like so. Now the Fong tool has a few inputs, as you can see here. It's got more than kind of your standard, and we have an output there as you would expect. So what we're going to do is just going to check out what these are. So we have some controls for specular, we have a color here. So let's start with the color. So I'm going to use a fast noise. So let's go to fast noise. We'll add a fast noise to our scene, and I'm just going to link the output into, that was our diffuse over there, I think. That's the specular. So that's our diffuse color. You can see that updated. So I'm going to throw my noise into this viewer here, and I'm just going to zoom out so I can see what I'm doing. I'm going to add a little bit of detail in here, just a touch, maybe increase the brightness and the contrast just a little. And I'm going to go into the colors here because you can see this is partially transparent, and that's because on color 1 we have an alpha here which is set to 0. So I'm going to solidify that just by bringing it right up. I'm going to pick a color, and I'm going to go for kind of a dark dirty brown, maybe slightly less saturated like so. And for color 2 I'm going to pick maybe a bluer. Again, still quite dark, but actually maybe we'll go for something lighter. Again, very unsaturated, like so. And I'm going to go back to my noise, and I'm going to increase the contrast between those two colours. And I'm just going to play with scale a bit. And you can see this is it's actually a real-time update in both our viewers here, the 3D and in our noise viewer. So this looks color-wise like it could be a very basic kind of a rock, but it's not really doing anything surface-wise. This is just a plain old Fong material. So what we're going to do is we'll just go in and we'll add another fast noise, and we'll set this up to be our bump. So let's add that to the scene. You can see that we have an output here. Now that output we're going to have to put into our bump, which I think is this one here, so our bump material, and you'll see that this doesn't really work. It doesn't really do anything. It won't connect, and that's because the Fong material tool here needs to have a second tool between the file that's creating the actual kind of image information for the height map or the bump map to translate it into bump information. So let's just hit control space and we'll say bump, and you can see here we have bump map here, or create bump map, but we'll just use the bump map. And we have this tool, so we can link our noise into the input there, and then our bump directly into our Fong material. Now you can't really see too much happening here. Let's just increase the contrast of our fast noise here. I'm going to change the scale slightly as well. I might reduce that just so we have a bit more detail to play with. I'm actually going to reduce that contrast. Let's go to our bump here, and we can choose height scale, and now this is where you start to see the actual surface detail. I'm going to increase the size of our space that we got here, or maybe just zoom in. So let's move our light around. In fact, this might be a better way of doing it. So to move a light in a material viewer, you're just using the middle mouse button, clicking and dragging, and that lets you move the light around. And you can see what this is doing. Now, what you can do if you want to have kind of some small scale noise and some large scale noise is, let's just zoom out here a little bit. I'm going to go to my fast noise there and hit Control Space, and I'm going to add a second fast noise. And because I've already got one loaded, that's going to add a merge node. And I'm just going to tidy up what I'm doing here a little bit. So we have these two noises which we're merging into one single noise. Let's just throw that into our viewer, and you can see we've still got some alpha things going on here. So let's just turn down that alpha gain a little bit, and I'm just going to play with the subtractive or additive mode. I think being more subtractive will give us a better result. So this large scale noise, let's just throw that in there, and let's increase the contrast of that one. And you can see that in our material viewport we get a instant feedback of where this large noise is happening now. I'm going to change the brightness to increase the height of it. And because the contrast is so sharp, you can see that we're getting these ridges. And I don't really like those ridges. They might look good elsewhere, but I'm just going to tinker with these settings until I get where I want. Now, what's also quite good about having that high contrast on a second tool here with our merge is that we can do something that might have a shiny surface but will create a kind of a rust in pools. So if I move my light now with my middle mouse button, you can see I've got smooth areas and areas that are kind of cut away with chunks of rust. And what it might be interesting to play with would be to take this noise and use that to control the... In fact, let's just do it. Let's delete that noise there. I'm going to cut that noise and paste it in here. So we've got a replica of that noise. Let's throw that into there. I'm going to give it some colours. So let's go to our colour here, and I'm going to keep our noise 1, which I'm going to give an alpha for this, and I'm going to make this a kind of just a dark red for now. I'm not going for a realism. I'm not going for a real looking rust. I'm just trying to show you how this could possibly work. So let's make this kind of a battleship grey or something. And now you can see how you can control some bump and the colour using that noise. And all that was doing really is just kind of copying it across so that it lined up in the same place. We can go back to our bump and we can change how these two figures are interacting. So we could reduce it down, or we could increase it to have more rust. Completely up to you. And so that's a quick introduction to just making a very simple 3D material. And because there's some geometry built into Fusion, you'll need a way of getting texture and materials onto it. And this is how you would do that. Although you can use these materials on imported assets from your main 3D program like Cinema 4D and Maya, whatever you happen to be using. So I hope that's been of some use, and a little introduction into getting started with some of the 3D elements of Fusion. And I'll see you all again probably in 2 weeks. I'm away at Trojan Horse next week, so I won't be recording any training. But the week after, I've got a big tutorial coming for this, where we're actually going to dive in quite a lot deeper, and it'll be a longer video where we're actually going to do something with a kind of a finished end result that we can show rather than an element of an end result. So I'll see you all then. Thanks very much. Bye bye.